In this tutorial, let's look at installing Tomcat, which is an application server. So if you want to write web applications in Java, you need to have an application server, and we will install Tomcat here. So to install Tomcat, you need to go to this URI, which is tomcat.apache.org. So when you go into apache.org, you select the latest possible version. So in this case, we have Tomcat 9. And since I'm running on Windows 10, which is a 64-bit Windows system, so I'll download the 64-bit windows.zip file. So I have already downloaded this, and the installation is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is copy that installation into, say, C Tools. So you download it, and it downloads to your downloads folder, and go to C Tools, copy that over, and extract that files. So when you extract the zip file, you'll get a folder like this, another folder under that, and you will have bin and web apps. Bin is where you will have all the Tomcat. You can run Tomcat by, say, running a startup.bat file, and the WAR files, WAR, web archive files, which is a short form. We saw jar files before, which are the Java archive files. These are called WAR files. They are like a zip file, but they got a meta-inf and webinf and other special folders inside. You should be able to unzip a WAR file with a 7-zip. To deploy applications, you have a folder called web apps. Inside web apps, you can copy your WAR files, and then they get exploded when the Tomcat by the Tomcat server, and then you can access these WAR files. So after you have installed it, so before you can install Tomcat, you need to have the JRE home setup. So JRE home, as we saw earlier, we can set it up as shown here. Also, we can set it up via the Windows environment system variables. So in this case, I'll set it up as with the set command. It is in DOS, JRE_home equals tools home, my JDK folder /JRE. So once this has been done, I change it to change directory to scripts. This is where my bat file is. Then I run the environment setup. Now the environment setup JRE home is set up. So I either clear the screen with CLS. Then I'm going to change directory to where my Tomcat is installed. C Tools, change directory to Apache Tomcat, and tab it to finish it. Change directory to same Apache M21. Then change directory to bin. So bin is where the binary folder, where the binary files are. Then I call startup.bat. So because you are running in a DOS shell, you run a bat. Otherwise, if you're running in a Unix system, you run the .sh file. So if I run startup and bat, and here the Tomcat server is starting up, it's pretty quick. So the two things to note here: one, it says the server startup, so it has started up in around 2 seconds. And also you need to note down the default port it's used is 8080. So this is the port we'll be accessing the Tomcat server. So we will minimize this, and the next step is to build a very simple web application, Java based web application file, so that we can deploy this to Tomcat, and then we will access it via a web browser. So all CLS is now, and I change directory to C projects. The first step is I'll be using Maven and build a basic web app skeleton. So this will be a web application project using Maven. So to do that, I need to run the following Maven command. So I'll go here, copy this, Control C, paste it here. Oops, that's not the one. So this command basically saying I'm running Maven command. So again, it's a C projects folder. This is where we put all our projects. -B means it is a non-interactive mode. So if you don't put -B, Tomcat will prompt you for the version numbers and few other questions. But if you want to leave it as the default values, to Tomcat to take the default values, and you want to run it in a batch mode, so you are not intermittently asked for different inputs, you put the -B, then archetype is generate, the group ID is com.mytutorial, and the artifact is a simple web application. And to tell that this is a web application, I need to say -D archetype artifact is Maven archetype web app. So because we are building a web application, so I press enter. Okay, so I shouldn't have copied the C project, so I go back and delete the C project. So it's basically from Maven. Now the Maven command runs and it will be creating the simple web folder. So that will be our web application project. Give it a few more seconds. Yes, it is done. So now if you go and look at our C projects folder, we can see a simple Maven web has been created. And this will have a source, main, web app project. Because it's a web app, you will have a web app folder, and inside that you will have a webinf. Inside webinf is what you will be putting all the .jsp files, HTML files, any web resources. And also, most importantly, every web app will have a web.xml file, which is called the deployment descriptor. So we will look at that in a minute. And now we will also need to create source main Java and source test Java folders, but we can do that inside Eclipse. So we'll go to Eclipse and then we will import this as an existing Maven project. So do file, import existing Maven projects, and go and select the C projects simple web and say OK. Because it has a pom.xml file, it knows it's a Maven based application, and then click on finish. You can now see there's a simple web, but there's a red color cross saying that there's some build problem. So if you look at the problems, it says the superclass JavaX servlet HTTP servlet was not found. So which is based on inside the web app. So the issue is here, you need a servlet API for the web project to work. Because in the index.jsp, there's a very simple JSP hello world JSP that's created. In Java, every JSP file gets converted to a servlet. So to be able to build this, you need a servlet API. You only need it to build, because if you deploy a web application, the Tomcat application server already has a servlet API. So in order to do that, we need to pom.xml file. This is where we bring in all our dependencies. So it got number of tabs here. I'll click on the pom.xml. So double click on it so it expands. I know that there's a later version of JUnit. So I click 412. And then I want to bring in the Tomcat, it's not a Tomcat, the servlet dependency. So the servlet dependency is here. So I copy this and paste it into this pom.xml file, right click, source, format, or I can do Ctrl+Shift+F to format it. Now I'm bringing the group ID of javax.servlet, artifact ID is javax.servlet API, and version is 310, and this is important. In the scope, by default it is a compile scope. That means it will compile it, and also when you package it up, the Servlet API Java will be included inside the package. But in this case, we only need it to compile, but we don't want it to be included in the WAR file that we built. So we put the scope as provided, which means the tomcat will provide this dependency when it runs, but we need just only for the sake of compiling. So we put it as provided scope. And in order to see where the JavaX servlet is coming from, which we have seen already, so if you go to a Maven central repository, which is repo1.maven.apache.org, under Maven 2, I can type in JavaX, which is, and then servlet, which is the group ID, So once you go into that group ID, then artifact ID is javax.servlet API. And here the later possible version is 3.10. These all kind of beta version looks like. So 3.10, and that's the Java file we're interested in. Now once you added that and saved it, now this error has gone away. Now we need to create, after this we need to create a servlet class. So we need to create source. So we'll create a new folder inside source main, and we need to create a new folder for Java. And also a new folder for the test. So we'll create a new folder. It's called source test, and the test will create another folder called Java. So this is basically the Maven structure. So source test Java is where we'll be putting all our unit tests. Okay, so all these showing that these all in the can be converted to class path. So these all like source path folders. So inside the source main Java, now I'm going to create a very simple servlet. So here, so it is called the simple servlet. So I'll copy this, Control C, go back to here, file, new class, call it simple servlet, click on finish, and I copy this. We need to create this inside the package called com.mytutorial. So I have to create a package here. So it has created a default package. So we entered in simple the com.mytutorial. So new package com.mytutorial. Finish here. Then I'm going to refactor and move that there. So you right click on this project, refactor, move. I'm going to move it to the com.mytutorial package. It's gone to the com.mytutorial package now. Then I can delete this now. So we got a simple servlet extends the HTTP servlet. So this is a servlet API. This is coming from the JavaX folder that we imported, the API. We need the API, and all these are coming from that servlet API we just imported via the pom.xml file. Okay, so we only got one more step, is we need to go into the web.xml file, which is a deployment descriptor, and we got to declare this servlet. So I go in here, I just do a copy, go back to my web.xml file. I just overwrite it, save this, double click on it to expand it. So basically this is saying the display name is a simple web application. I am registering my servlet. It is called the simple servlet, and the class that is servicing the servlet is com.mytutorial.simpleservlet. And then I'm mapping this whenever I call something with the URL pattern of /simple, then it is going to call the simple servlet that I've configured. And the simple web, whatever the archive file I'm creating, is going to be the context name. So now we have done this. Now the next step is we need to just package it up as a WAR file. So there are two ways you can do it. So one way is to select here simple web, right click on it, and then say run as Maven install. So you will see the Maven command that will be running it. So it will be basically compiling your Java classes, especially the servlet class, and then packaging it up, and it will be creating something called a simple.war file. So simple.war file is nothing but the structure of simple web. It will have a simple web, it will have the webinf. Inside the webinf, it will be creating all the classes. So inside the classes is where the servlet will be. So you got a simple servlet.class, and then it will be having index.jsp. We'll not be using the index.jsp in this example, but we'll be calling this servlet. And also it should have the webinfo and the web.xml file that we have created. So we got the compile servlet class and the web.xml file that defines how the servlet gets called. It's called via a URL pattern of /simple. There's another way to build this Java file as well. You can change directly to simple web, I should say WAR file, and then I can say Maven clean package. This should package up the WAR file as well. Okay, so now it's all packaged up. Now the next step is to copy the WAR file from my C projects folder. So simple web target simple web WAR file, copy this and go into Tomcat installation, which is under C tools, Apache Tomcat here, and inside the web apps. And I need to just paste this, replace the file in destination, it will redeploy it, and here you can see simple web WAR file has been finished. It has just deployed because we were already running the Tomcat, and we just copy the WAR file and paste it, and now we are ready to invoke this. So to invoke this, you go to a web application. Simple web is the name of the project. So basically you can see your simple web.war get exploded into simple web. So Tomcat has exploded it. So simple web is the context. So you need to put the application context, which is the simple web. Then simple is the URI. We set it up through the web.xml file. We said if we call simple, you should call the simple servlet. And then we have said the simple servlet is nothing but com.mytutorial.simpleservlet. If you go to simple servlet, all it does is it puts some outward print line. It says HTML body, then it says simple within the h1 tag, then close the body and close the HTML tag. So now if we hit this, we will see simple. So you can also view source, which is exactly the HTML we are outputting from that servlet. So it is also important to now, if you go and look at what is inside the simple web is nothing but got a meta-inf that tells you some manifest file, the files that are included. But what is more important is the webinf folder, and inside the webinf folder we have classes. My tutorial simple servlet class is a servlet that we created. and web.xml file is the deployment descriptor that tells you when a particular URI is accessed, what servlet class is executed. That's all for this tutorial.